New laptops are on their way, but if you're not sure which ROG laptop is the right one for you, we are here to help you out.
Yes, we are. Some of the most common questions I have seen in this job, and in fact, one of the questions that I have asked in the past as I was reviewing these things, with things like, what is the difference between ROG and TUF? What is the difference between Strix and Zephyrus, or the Strix Scar and the Strix G? Right? How do all of these models kind of fit into the larger lineup? We are going to answer all of that and more today so you know exactly what machine is right for you. Um, Before we start, since I know everyone will ask, most of these laptops will be available starting in March. That is the date that NVIDIA has set for laptops with their chips.
Hmm.
Certain SKUs may come a little bit later than others. It just depends on exactly which CPU and GPU you're looking for, and when we get those shipments in from NVIDIA and Intel and AMD and whatnot. The exception to the March rule is the Flow Z13. Again, we'll talk about that machine in a bit, but that machine is most likely coming in February because it is an all AMD machine. So it has its own timeline. So yeah, February for that, March for all of the others.
It's basically February now. We're almost there. So soon TM if you're waiting for that Z13.
Man, that is true. Yeah. Okay. We're like 2 days away from that. Cool. So Jake helped me put together this very cool graphic showing basically kind of the lineup breakdown. This includes basically every ROG machine for 2025, as well as some of the TUF Gaming machines. We will get there, but I want to start with the ROG Strix family. You'll see this one on the left. This is our highest performing series of laptops, designed primarily for like esports enthusiasts or people who are primarily using their laptop for gaming and care about frame rates above all else, right? Like that is, you want maximum power from an ROG laptop. The Strix series is it. They come with kind of really kind of unique designs, right? Plenty of RGB and different lighting effects and stuff like that. And this year, we have an entirely new chassis with some new features. So this year's Intel-based Strix models feature a new thermal design that draws in air from underneath the machine and then and the sides, and it exhausts it all out the back using this like heat sink that's sandwiched around a vapor chamber to really get the most out of those RTX 50 series graphics chips. You can kind of see from the top two pictures here, they also have this cool like RGB, full surround RGB ring along the bottom of the chassis.
Yeah, super cool.
Looks really, because the first time we've done it around the entire chassis, and it looks really cool when it's like sitting on a desk or a table. We had them sitting on a mirror at CES and it had this kind of infinity effect, which was really cool. So some new design stuff there, but there are a few different Strix models that vary a bit in features and in the configurations we offer. So let's take a look at that. I have a graphic for this as well.
And I clicked the wrong thing.
It's okay.
There we go.
Actually, I realized, okay, here we go. So our team worked this up, which I think helps break down a lot. By the way, all this information is available in the links in the description of this video. But I pulled out those charts to kind of show as we're talking about this. So in general, we have two different variations of ROG Strix. The ROG Strix Scar 16 and 18 and the ROG Strix G16 and G18. The Scar is our top end model. So it has a very similar chassis design, but it is usually equipped with the top end hardware. So in this case, the Scar is the only model that goes all the way up to a 5090. It's also the only model to feature our Nebula HDR display, which uses a mini LED panel, 2000 dimming zones, super deep black levels, 1200 nits of peak brightness. Like if you're playing games in HDR or watching movies in HDR, that display is gorgeous. It looks so freaking good.
Yeah.
And it's 240 hertz. So you get super smooth motion as well. Like it's got everything, right?
Insane.
The Scar also has a bit more like RGB. For example, that logo on the lid is RGB. On the G, on the like gray version of the G, it's just a gray logo on the lid. The Scar, you'll also see, has the anime vision slash across the front, which allows you to put in all sorts of like custom lighting animations, make your laptop stand out from everyone else's. Like it is like the balls to the wall ROG machine, right?
It really is.
It is available in both 16 and 18-inch sizes. And it featured the other thing I didn't mention about design, it's got the new toolless design. So you just flick a switch and you can open up the bottom and easily upgrade the storage and the RAM. So you can make that machine last you well into the future.
Very cool.
Now, The Intel-based Strix G16 and G18 are similar. They have the same chassis design, the same toolless upgrades, the same thermal solution, but you don't have the enemy vision on the back, as you can see. You don't have the option for the mini LED display on that one, and it has like a bit less RGB on certain models, right? You do still get the option for our regular Nebula display on these models, so it's still a really good display. You still get the vibrant color performance, you get the 240 hertz refresh rate, you get the ambient contrast ratio filter that we've put on all of our Strix models this year that like helps the image punch out a little bit because the blacks are a little bit deeper. It combats some of that glare. It's actually really cool. So still a really great display that's going to pop. If you aren't playing in HDR, you probably aren't going to care, and that's going to be the display you want anyway. But if you want that stellar HDR performance, you want to go with the SCAR. Or if you want that 5090, you want to go with the SCAR. The Strix G16 and G18 don't usually come with like the 90 tier GPU, but they come with a wider range of configurations. So the SCAR is usually just like top end GPU or GPUs. Whereas right now we have the 5070, 5070 Ti, and 5080 on the Strix G16 and G18. But in the past, the G16 and G18 have gone all the way down to like 50 tier for some generations. So while we don't have those GPUs like at this time, just in general, that model tends to have a wider range of configurations.
Less of just a raw high end. Yeah.
Yeah. You have a lot of configs to kind of choose from. Now, finally, on the right here, you can see that we also have a Strix G16 and G18 using AMD's new CPUs. Those CPUs are awesome. It goes all the way up to the 9955. Yeah, HX3D. Killer CPU. But those use our previous chassis design. Still great thermals. You can still upgrade the RAM and the CPU. You just need a screwdriver to do it, right? And still available in 16 and 18-inch configurations there. And those go up to a 5070 Ti. So similar kind of like idea with the two G16 and G18. It's just the two different chassis there and the different CPUs. So check out the link in the description if you want to see like full spec tables for all of these Strix machines. I see some questions about, hey, do you guys sell it with 4 terabytes? I believe they only go up to 2 terabytes, but again, you can upgrade that storage yourself to whatever you want. Yeah. Even with the screwdriver one, it's really easy to do. But the toolless one is like, you could do it in seconds, right? It's nuts. So if you want more RAM or you want more storage, you can easily pop that in yourself. One other thing to mention, everything that I'm talking about today, these specs are global specs, are global offerings, but they can vary a bit from region to region. Certain countries may only carry certain SKUs or certain colors, or may have slightly different versions based on what they think is going to sell in their region. So check what's available in your area for more. This is just a general overview of all of the models that we make on the global side, but then it's up to the local offices and the local retailers to customize their offerings, and then they choose what to sell in their areas. So
Casson asks, what can/can't we upgrade? I believe it's just storage and memory.
Storage and memory. Yep, GPU and CPU are always soldered to the motherboard. That's just generally how laptops work. We do have an external GPU that you can use like down the line to kind of upgrade the graphics on your machine if you want to do that and try to make your laptop last longer. We'll talk about that in a little
Mobile.
bit.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a way around that. Some models you may also be able to like pop in a new Wi-Fi card or something like that, but I haven't done that myself. Dealing with drivers and stuff like that, it may take a little bit more work depending on the model that you upgrade to. But yeah, typically it's RAM and storage is kind of what we advertise as the upgradable features of those. I see a lot of people asking about certain SKUs. We talked about this in the CES Q&A. I won't go through all of it now, but a lot of it has to do with just demand from retailers, local offices, and what the project team thinks is going to sell. Like if the 18-inch doesn't have a certain GPU or CPU, it's probably because the 16-inch tends to sell better. Maybe it tends to sell better on the high end. It's stuff like that. So again, I can't detail the reasoning for every single SKU that we have. But if you go back and watch our CES Q&A, we go into a little bit more detail on some of that. And if there's a SKU that you want that we don't have, keep letting us know. Sometimes it's just a vocal minority and those models don't actually sell, but sometimes, there's actually demand for something that we didn't make, and in the past we've come out with that.
And I'll
So
say the same thing about everybody
we'll see.
asking about the Zephyrus Duo. We hear you, and we'll relay the information. We see that people are passionate about a product, right? All we can
Mhm.
do is pass the word along.
Yep. Okay. So that is the Strix series. Let's move on to the Zephyrus series. The ROG Zephyrus G14 and G16 are more thin and light gaming laptops. So while Strix is our top performer, these actually are probably the more kind of famous, well-known, popular models because when we first made the G14 and it was back then the G15. Um, we really hit on something that people wanted, which was a laptop that could game, but was thin and light enough to carry around with you, take it to class, do whatever. It was kind of like a unique proposition at the time. So it has this really great balance between still offering great performance. It's a really powerful machine, but in a really portable package. So let's bring up the comparison table of these. These are a bit more similar than some of the Strix models because there's no it's just a 14-inch and a 16-inch with some spec variations. Both of these machines got a redesign last year with this new CNC milled all aluminum chassis that feels really premium. Also premium to this new chassis is the OLED display on both of these. We talked a bit about mini LED earlier, but OLED is sort of the other high-end display option around right now. The benefit being that on OLED, each individual pixel can dim down to pure black, which makes the image super crisp, super punchy. It is one of the best displays you have ever seen on a laptop, and our team did a lot of work on perfecting it. Like they had to do some really fancy engineering footwork to get G-Sync working on these. We did a whole episode about that, I think last year, but it was well worth it. Like this, it's crazy. The G14 has a 14-inch 3K resolution with a 120 hertz refresh rate. The G16 is obviously 16 inches, a little bit bigger if you want that kind of more expansive view. It's 2.5K resolution at 240 hertz. So a bit of a smoother refresh rate on that one too.
Yeah.
Now, the G14 is really compact, so it does not go up to a 5090, but we were able to get it up to a 5080 this year. I saw someone asking earlier. I know. I saw someone asking earlier if there's anything new about the G14 and G16 this year besides the GPUs. The designs are mostly the same as last year. We did do some small changes to the thermal design in these to kind of keep up with the 50 series, and that did allow us to go up to an RTX 5080 on the G14, which is awesome. Last year, I think it only went up to a 70 tier GPU. Now that said, the Zephyrus G16, because it's a little bit bigger, that one goes up to a 5090. So I also think this is a good time to mention, we've talked about this before, but remember that we tune these GPUs for the chassis that they're in. I see a lot of people worrying that like a 5080 or 5090 is going to be too hot for a thin and light design like these, but it's not just about what GPU you put in it, right? We got these chips from NVIDIA, and then we decide the total wattage to allocate to those chips in each individual machine. So we're not pumping as much wattage at the G16's 5090 as we are the Strix Scars 5090, because again, with Zephyrus, we wanted to make it more portable, which means you have a little bit less cooling. That doesn't mean that the 5090 is going to overheat in it. That means that we're just going to run it at a lower wattage to stay within those temperature thresholds. So we've specifically tuned each of the machines to fit within safe and comfortable parameters for the high-end GPUs we put in them. So other than that, these machines are pretty similar to each other in terms of design. The G16 has some slightly bigger speakers, things like that, bigger screens. It's really just about whether you'd like the slightly more portable version or the slightly larger screen with the high-end GPU.
Zenbo asks, does limiting the wattage affect the performance greatly?
It does affect performance, but it depends on how much, and it depends on the GPU, right? So every year, and this is not available at the time of this video shooting, but when it is, I'll try to remember to put it in the description. We publish a list of the wattages of all of our laptops on our site every year. I don't have all of that final information yet. They weren't able to get it to me before Chinese New Year, but when they do, I'm going to put that article up on the site so you guys can go look at it. And then ultimately, you just have to look at benchmarks between the different machines to decide like where that sweet spot is for you between performance, cost, and portability, right? So because you know the 5090 is gonna still run better than the 5080 at equivalent wattages. So it's like, okay, do I want a 5080 SCAR or a 5090? I don't. That's not necessarily equivalent, but you know, like, so you'll have to kind of go through that triangle and figure out what fits your needs best. Okay, let's go back to the main chart. We've got a couple more. Thank you for looking at the questions for me, because I see chat going by fast and I can't.
Yeah, we can't answer every question, but we're going to answer
go.
the ones that make the most sense to answer live in this show.
I'll also try after we're done going through these to kind of check back. I've got a couple questions that I grabbed but haven't answered yet, and I'll try to go through some of those toward the end.
So we may cycle back to your questions if we didn't answer them.
Yeah. So yeah, if you see them, just copy and paste them in the doc toward the end there too while I'm talking. So finally, we have one more family in the ROG lineup. We've got ROG Strix on the left there, ROG Zephyrus, and then ROG Flow is the youngest family in our product line, but it's probably the most unique. Flow is all about versatility. It's also thin and light, really, really thin and light. But the Flow products also use touchscreens in those ultra slim designs and are kind of designed to adapt to whatever situation you might want to put them in. So whether you're on the road or you're docking it to a monitor and keyboard at home for a desktop setup, like, they're designed to kind of go anywhere and do anything, right? This year we have one Flow device. Previously we had some clamshell, 13-inch and 16-inch clamshell designs that I know people are asking about. We did not announce any new versions of those this year, so they are not part of the 2025 lineup. Again, who knows what the future holds? I don't know. But for this year, it is all about the Flow Z13, which is a tablet, a gaming tablet with a detachable keyboard. Now, what's cool about this year's Flow Z13 is that it uses a crazy powerful Ryzen AI Max chip from AMD, right? So that's the Strix Halo chip that puts a CPU, GPU, and NPU all onto one chiplet-based processor, and it's kind of nuts how well this thing performs. So you've got a 13-inch beautiful touchscreen, detachable keyboard cover, and one big pool of memory that you can allocate to system RAM or VRAM as you see fit for the task at hand. Again, all about versatility and adaptability. That ability to take that one pool and you can throw a bunch of VRAM at it for gaming, or throw a really lot of VRAM at it for like training AI models, or throw more RAM at the system if that's what you need for the task at hand, right? We unboxed the Z13 last week, so you can go back and check that out if you want more details on this model, but that is the Flow Z13, and that is the Flow family as it stands right now in January 2025. Now, the Flow family used to go hand in hand with our external GPU called the XG Mobile. This year, the XG Mobile is more of a standalone device that can connect to any laptop,
which is amazing.
So yeah, it's really cool. Flow, Zephyrus, even if you have a ZenBook or something else entirely, like a non-gaming laptop, you could turn it into a gaming machine by plugging in that XG Mobile. Because instead of using our old proprietary connector that was specific to our Flow devices, it now uses Thunderbolt 5. So you can connect the XG Mobile to any device with a Thunderbolt 5 port, a Thunderbolt 4 port, or a USB 4 port, right? Because it's backwards compatible with all of those. And the XG Mobile actually does two things. It gives you more graphical power because inside it has a 5070 Ti or a 5090, depending on the model you buy. So you get the graphical power of that on your laptop. And then it also gives you a bunch more ports to plug into. It's kind of like expanding the port selection of your laptop. You get more USB ports. You got DisplayPort and HDMI. You got an SD card reader. It's almost like a dock that turns your laptop into a full like desktop battle station. Really cool. That's not even the coolest part though. Here's the real like unique part about the XG Mobile. Unlike other external GPUs, which take up a bunch of space on your desk, right? They're almost like a little desktop. The XG Mobile is super portable. I like to say it's about the size of like a hardcover novel. Like, would you say that's
it's a book.
An accurate description of the size? Yeah. So you can easily just toss it in your bag and bring it with you if you want that extra power on the go, or leave it at home when you don't. That is really unique to this kind of product category.
Form factor,
and something
that
something that makes the XG Mobile really cool. But I'm excited to see what people do with that now that you can connect it to basically any device you want.
So can you connect it to the Z13? Yes, the new Flow Z13 will work with the new XG Mobile. The ROG Ally X will work with the XG Mobile. Any of these devices will work with the XG Mobile and beyond that.
Your Asus VivoBook will work with the XG Mobile. Like, you know. So those are all of the ROG machines. But you will notice another column in the chart here. and that is our TUF Gaming line.
Blasphemy.
TUF Gaming isn't part of ROG, so we don't always like talk about it on this channel because it's not technically the same brand. It's a separate gaming brand from ASUS. But I wanted to include it here to try and kind of explain how it fits in, because I do see that question a lot. You can kind of think of it like like Nissan and Acura, or like Toyota and Lexus, right? Like two brands from the same company that kind of denote different areas of the product.
One is better than the other.
TUF Gaming, as its name suggests, is all about durability and longevity. And yeah, kind of like Jake mentioned, like TUF Gaming is a bit more value oriented, right? Like its goal is to give you all of the essential features while skipping some of the bells and whistles that make the ROG machines really awesome, but also up the cost, right? So if you can't quite swing the machine that has all of those features, you can get something that's a bit more pared down to like the essential stuff. For example, like that could include things like extra RGB, right? But it can also include things that affect the gaming performance, like
thermal solutions and
yeah. So the TUF machines don't have configs that go necessarily as high as ROG. I don't think there are any TUF machines with like a 5090 in them, for example. Or things like the display. The TUF machines don't use our Nebula branding. That's specific to ROG. A couple of them do have similar specs to our Nebula displays, like the DCI-P3 color and the 240 hertz refresh rates, but not all of them do. Some of them like would not fall under the Nebula spec, right? So they still have a great chassis, cool kind of mecha inspired designs. You can still find them in a lot of different configs, but they may not have all of the same features as the ROG models. They're designed to be an affordable laptop that will stand the test of time, like simple as that, right? Now, one other thing I want to mention about the TUF machines, in this graphic, you'll see some of our new 2025 models, like the new TUF Gaming A18, as well as the A14 that we introduced partway through last year. But that over there is not the full TUF lineup. One other difference with TUF is that we tend to sell more previous generation TUF machines for longer. With ROG, like this is our 2025 lineup. You'll see some of the 2024 ROG models on shelves for a while longer as retailers like kind of go through the rest of their stock. But usually by the end of the year, most of those previous generation models are cleared out. With TUF, you can still find models from like 2024, 2023, even a couple from further back, depending on your region. Like that's how we hit some of those lower price points. Instead of making a super cheap 2025 model, we'll just extend some of the previous gens longer to kind of fill out that product stack a little bit more. So that column and that list is not exhaustive of what's available on the market. So as always, you got to check out your local retailers to like see what's available in what configs at what prices in your region. But in general, TUF it has that wider range that can kind of go further back into previous gens than tends to happen with ROG. Last year being an exception. Last year we stretched out the 2023 models, but usually like you get the previous gen until it sells out and then it's gone. So, all right. I'm going to go through a couple questions here that I've seen in chat. People asking about the X13, people asking about the Duo. If we did not announce it at CES, we have not announced it. And it does not currently yet exist. So that doesn't mean that it never will. But as of right now, the X13, the X16, and the Duo are not part of our 2025 lineup.
Yeah.
Not to say that they'll never come back, but they are not currently part of the lineup. And people are saying, like, when's it going to come out? We haven't announced that it exists, yet alone any sort of release date. The rest of these, as I mentioned, though, are coming out in March.
And someone just asked, is this all of your laptops for 2025? Traditionally, we tend to release a few throughout the year. There tends to be like maybe a side variant of one of the devices, but like not a lot. Like, so there may be a few more laptops. There may not be. I don't know.
Around like Computex time.
Yeah.
Usually, though, CES is when we announce the vast majority of our laptops for the year.
Yep. So Computex, there's a chance, but that's really the only other opportunity I can think of when we would have something. I don't know.
Yeah. Does ASUS have plans to increase their laptop chargers from around 200 watts to maybe 300 watts for increased performance, or is heat dissipation a factor there? It depends a little bit on the machine. So some of our Strix machines, at least this year, I know that some of them have higher wattage chargers than say the Zephyrus machines. It does depend on the machine, and some of those are tuned for, size, right? Because we don't want to give you a giant brick for your backpack that you don't need. And some of these like the Zephyrus machines run at lower wattages, so they don't necessarily need a larger charger to run them at full bore. Like the wattage is not, he's saying 300 watt for increased performance. The charger is not the bottleneck for performance. The thermal capacity of the chassis is like the bottleneck, so to speak. So with the Strix machines, because those can go up to like 175 watts on the GPU, we pack a large enough charger to handle that machine at full bore. The Zephyrus machines, because they're thinner and lighter, we can't run those chips at high of a wattage. So including a 320 watt charger with the Zephyrus machine isn't going to change anything about how it runs. 200 watts is enough to run that machine at full bore. And upping the wattage of the charger wouldn't allow us to increase the power because the thermal design is only capable of dissipating so many watts of heat.
I'm going to jump in and get a live question. Just
yeah,
my Zephyrus Duo. We found your Zephyrus Duo with a 4090. Wondering if the new XG Mobile will connect to it. The answer is yes.
It will. Because the Zephyrus Duo. Actually, I'm not sure about the Duo because the Duo was an AMD machine.
Oh, really?
And I don't think it had USB 4, right?
Let's find out.
Sometimes that's been 2 years, and now a lot of this knowledge has like left my brain. Yeah, I don't think the Zephyrus Duo doesn't have USB 4, so I actually don't know if the XG Mobile would be compatible with that model. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not positive about that. Like, I know that the XG Mobile is going to work with anything with Thunderbolt 4, Thunderbolt 5, USB 4. Once you get, I think it's probably compatible with Thunderbolt 3, but I don't know how much like you're going to lose to bandwidth there. And I don't know about previous AMD machines that don't have Thunderbolt, because remember, Thunderbolt is an NVIDIA, or sorry, not NVIDIA, an Intel technology.
Right.
So it's compatible with USB 4. That's one of the benefits of USB 4, that new standard, is that it's also works with Thunderbolt. But before that, I'm not sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Last
Good call. It's all the USB 3.2.
Some people asking about, hey, so the 5090 laptop GPU, what's that comparable to on the desktop side? I don't actually have any numbers yet. And even if I did, I don't think I'd be able to share them because the performance embargoes are up on these. People saying, why don't you use a desktop chip for laptops? That's just not how NVIDIA is doing things right now. That's more of a question for them. But a laptop and a desktop are just two vastly different systems, right?
Yeah.
You have so much more room for thermal dissipation in a giant tower desktop than you do in a laptop, even a larger laptop. So they designed the chips specifically for laptops and then let us adjust the wattage to fit our chassis design. It's just a very different kind of system. So, but that's more of an NVIDIA question than for us. We get the chips from them. We adapt the wattage to our machines, and that's that. So I think that is all of the questions that I saw that I can answer right now. So hopefully that gives you guys an idea of like what the family looks like and kind of where to kind of start your search. If you guys want to see these laptops in action, subscribe and follow our YouTube and Twitch channels, because we will be unboxing a bunch of these in the coming weeks and months. And then when we are able to, Jake will be taking them on a spin through 2025's slate of games. You guys will get to see performance and what they're like to play on and things like that. Speaking of which, while that is it for our main topic today, this is not the full show. If you are watching this on YouTube after the fact, we cut down the video to just include our main topic so you aren't scrubbing through an hour-long stream for the information you want. But if you watch live, there is so much more than just this. We talk about what new products are on shelf that week. We talk about some of the sales we're running that week. We jam about games. We do giveaways. Yes, we give away like free stuff. So if you want to see that, tune in live on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, to see the full show. And I might also mention that you can join our Discord to connect with the community and stay up to date on the latest news and announcements.